David Brewster here with another 3 for All, and this is 3 Michael Romeo Licks from 1997. And of course, we're going to be talking about Symphony X. And I was surprised by the request for Michael Romeo, and they've been piling up for months, leading up to October, for Metal Month here. And I was surprised mainly because I've never really sat down and learned any of his music or his ideas until this lesson. And there are some crazy licks in this lesson, so it was a big challenge putting this together. So I do want to thank you for the challenge and for kind of pushing me toward Michael's ideas. So it was a challenge for me, and it's going to be a big challenge for you too, I'm sure. But Symphony X formed in New Jersey in 1994, and they kind of just burst through that door that Dream Theater helped open, in the early 90s, the prog-metal door. And definitely Dream Theater kind of helped, groups like Symphony X kind of find their footing and, definitely helped them gain more attention and things like that. And Michael's a sick guitarist. I mean, just a wizard. And he's influenced by players like Randy Rhoads and Yngwie, like John Roth. I'm hearing a little bit of Paul Gilbert and a little bit of Sean Lane in there too. So a very diverse and just dynamic guitarist. So Symphony X has had 9, studio albums since their origin, in the early 90s. And, they have had some member changes or personnel changes. But Michael's been a consistent, I think one of the 2 consistent members of the band the entire time. And I wasn't really sure, I knew that he was the creative force, of the band. But when I saw some of this video footage and these, bootlegs and live footage, there was a stage rant from the vocalist, just praising Michael's, talent and ability. Check this clip out.
This guy's more than just a guitar player, folks. He's a master composer. He is the music of Symphony X. This guy makes it all happen. Without him, there's no Symphony X. Do you understand that?
The licks in this lesson actually came from 2 different places. There was a very early live bootleg, which is where the majority of these ideas came from. And there wasn't a date, there wasn't really a detailed description whatsoever, as far as the YouTube video that I found. And I even scrolled through all the comments trying to find like a date or at least a location. So I honestly don't know the date, and I also don't know where this footage was, filmed. But it's very early. You can tell Michael looks different, his hair is a little bit different. He's also playing an ESP that has a Symphony X, decal or sticker on it. So that made me think it's early, in their career. So I literally just guessed 1997 because I had a feeling that was pretty close to when that footage was shot. And there's another lick in this lesson that's going to basically be more recent. I think it's from 2010. And once again, it didn't really have the location as far as where it was. But you can tell, a difference between the early footage and the more recent footage. All right, the first lick is this crazy tapped string skipping idea that revolves around Phrygian Dominant, and it looks and sounds like this. One more time. So just as a reminder, Phrygian Dominant's basically a mode of harmonic minor, and we're playing around with E Phrygian Dominant. And this lesson is tuned down a whole step. I gave you a heads up at the beginning. So, tuned down a whole step, E Phrygian Dominant technically is going to sound like D Phrygian Dominant. But I'm just kind of talking about the location on the fretboard. But, if you think of A harmonic minor, think of A harmonic minor, but start on E and basically play, A harmonic minor starting on E, and you're playing E Phrygian Dominant. Anyway, with this lick, he's basically starting with this G sharp, tapped, and he's also adding vibrato with this fret hand, behind the tap note, which is so cool. Comes down, then he basically grabs this B flat, the flat 5, and then he's holding the tap note and bending a half step with his fret hand, which raises that B flat to B, like this. So one more time there. right there, he returns to that first tap with the G sharp, and he starts adding some double taps in there like that. And then right there he targets F, which is the flat 9. Which once again is really sick and cool. So one more time all the way through it. Crazy, frantic lick. All right, up next is this crammed, Phrygian Dominant speed lick, and he kind of starts and just maintains one position, and then he starts flying around the fretboard. And we've actually looked at the pattern that he's using. It kind of came from Paul Gilbert, and I've mentioned it in some other lessons on this channel. But the lick looks like this. One more time. And there you can see we're actually just playing a little piece of E Phrygian Dominant right here. And it's actually a really good workout for your third finger and pinky if you're having trouble, controlling those two fingers. It's a great little, just exercise or a workout right there. Just doing this. And he just starts racing that, that 4-note pattern. Then he starts doing kind of like a double right there. And then becomes this kind of fretboard, kind of mapped or linked octave idea. And we've talked about this in regard to Paul Gilbert. And here's Michael using this idea too. So we're doing this. And I just kind of end it right there on that E note. Michael, of course, keeps going during his solo. But one more time there. And when we looked at this before, we referred to that as A minor or A natural minor. But here, we're kind of using that like Phrygian Dominant. So now you could think of that as E Phrygian Dominant, since we're in the key of E. Really cool. Next up is another speed lick, but this time it's flipped to E harmonic minor instead of Phrygian Dominant. And I originally learned an idea like this from Paul Gilbert. I think it's actually also an Yngwie lick too. So I don't know if Michael learned this from Yngwie or Paul Gilbert, but I first learned, an idea like this, studying some of Paul Gilbert's ideas. But it starts slow, and then he just starts going faster and faster, like this. One more time. Something like that. It's crazy. So it starts here. And keep in mind now we're in E harmonic minor. So that's where that D, D sharp's coming in. And there's your C, B, and A there on the B string. And then do that again on the high E. And then you're going to come down A, G, and F sharp on the G. And then just loop that sucker over and over. And then at at the end, you can hear he almost kicks on like an afterburner, and he just starts flying through that. Something like this. A little sloppy, but still, I mean, it's just crazy. You know, he just starts racing and pushing that faster and faster. Here's the clip, you know, watch him just blaze through that. Here's a bonus lick, and this came from some different live footage. I believe it's from around 2010. And this is the string skips tapped section from his solo in the song Sea of Lies from the Divine Wings of Tragedy album. And it's something like this. One more time. Crazy little lick. So here he's basically, you know, tapping G and then pulling off F sharp to E on the high E. Then he's tapping B and then coming down, what, G, F sharp, and E on the G string. And he begins that line with a tap and ends it with a tap. Like that. And that's really tough because that's known as a hammer-on from nowhere, because you're not picking and you're not tapping. You're literally just kind of, you know, walking over there or skipping over there and hammering on from nowhere. That's tough. So that's going to function as E minor, technically D minor since we're tuned down a whole step, but whatever. E minor. And then basically change that B note to a C, and then that's going to change it to C major. And then you're going to shift over here, and that's D major right there. So you have this little, you know, area of tapping notes that kind of change. The big thing to really pay attention to is the fact here, you know, G, F sharp, and E on the G string maintains pretty much the whole time. And then the tapping notes are going to change ever so slightly. And also the hammer-on from nowhere notes are going to change ever so slightly. But it is kind of reassuring to know, okay, this doesn't change. And then we're going to basically just walk through it like this. Kind of end on that tapped E note. He, of course, keeps going during the solo. But one more time here, and this is wicked. That's going to wrap this look at 3 Michael Romeo licks from 1997, and once again I'm kind of guessing the year, but that's probably pretty close to where the earlier, you know, footage came from. And he's a very exciting, dynamic, and interesting guitarist. I did read somewhere that it's been about 5 years since they released an album. I think they are working on something new this year, maybe for a release next year sometime. But anyway, Michael's definitely a great guitarist, you know, really unusual and inventive. And I like, you know, guitarists like that, where it's not the same old bag of tricks, it's not the same old bag of licks. It's different, you know, he kind of shakes things up. And I like that, big time. So anyway, leave some feedback and some comments. Please subscribe to Night Lessons, and I'll be back before you know it with more content and material. Thank you.